Before the success stories, the progress, there was you. You who made a choice to grow, to inspire, to overcome your own challenges. At NASM, we're in service of your limitless potential because when you keep growing, we all get stronger. And we'll never stop making your journey our mission. Join the fitness leader. Become a fitness leader. Become a certified personal trainer.
Welcome to this week's episode of the Master Instructor Roundtable with myself, Wendy Batts, and friend and colleague, Dr. Marty Miller. Marty, how's it going?
Good. Thanks, Wendy. How about yourself today?
Things are great. Things are great. Well, today's topic is going to be a little bit different. I know if any of you have listened, and we hope that you do, to Random Fit, Ken Miller and I talked about the 2024 fitness trends that were happening and all of the technology and all the trends that are going on based on their research. And Marty and I thought we would take a different approach and talk about the global trends, which again, I think there is some correlation. But I think too, it's talking more on a broader scale, just about what we're seeing all over the world and kind of the trends in wellness and fitness. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today.
Yeah, I think what's important is to be aware of the trends for a couple of reasons. One, your career is going to morph whether you think it or not. Mine has many times. So why not know about what is happening and try to get ahead of it? And you may find a whole new passion play for you that you're like, oh my goodness, this is something I really want to hyper focus on. So it's good to be aware of it before you're like, oh, I wish I saw that coming.
Yes. We're going to put you in the know, people. So we look at, let's just talk about what we're going to talk about. So the introduction, we're going to talk about that fitness trends change. We've seen this each and every year. Some are happening because of events that we didn't know were going to happen, such as the pandemic. We saw a major shift in some of the things that were a trend in 2020 versus 2021. And now in 2024, it's completely different than what it was. And it's important to pay attention. Really look at research, look at what's happening in the world, find out what's on television and then look up is it true? And then I think it's also too, we've got to be adaptable. We all know this. As trainers, we have to be adaptable on the day-to-day, moment to moment with our clients, but we also just need to think about our own discipline, if you will, whatever areas or niches that we have. It's really important that we are honed in on some of the changes.
Yeah, I remember when I first started my career, someone would come say, hey, I saw this article in the newspaper.
Yeah, you're old, Marty.
Oh, yeah, like you didn't know what that was.
I just play it. Hey, I read the comics. I didn't read anything else.
Well, no, but our clients, right? And then I saw this on social media. So things change. But when we look at the trends in the United States alone, we estimate that the wellness market, which we work in, has the reach of $480 billion, growing at 5 to 10% a year. So one thing I like to look at is the rule of 72. Wendy knows I'm a numbers person. So it'll double, when you see 72 compounded. So if it hit 10%, that 480 billion would be 960 billion in 7.5 years, basically. So there's a lot of money in what we're doing each and every day. And all you got to do is carve out a little niche of that, and you're going to have a successful business. 82% of U.S. consumers now consider wellness a top important priority in their everyday lives, right? Things have changed. People have more sedentary jobs. So they have to purposely put fitness and wellness into their life. And this is where we can come in and fulfill those needs and be an expert in their lives and help them. And this is going to be especially true when we look at Gen Z and millennial consumers who are now purchasing more wellness products and services than older generations. So show me the money.
Well, and I think think about where we started when we were introducing NASM OPT model, when it was actually put into NASM's methodology, which was what, Marty, in 1999 to 2000 is when Dr. Clark decided to put this in there. There were no foam rollers in the fitness industry. Mm-hmm. Well, 24 years later, now we've got different types of foam rollers, what type of material. We've got soft foam,
Part of
harder
that
foam.
480 billion.
Yeah, PVC pipes, vibration, different types of companies out there doing different things because we continue to grow. And as we gain more knowledge, there are a lot of people out there that's taking that little bit of knowledge and making a product out of it. And of course, I want to try it out, especially with what I do for a living. If it's going to better my clients, why wouldn't I make the purchase? So this number makes sense to me. And it's, I think, only, as you said, going to continue to grow as we learn more and more about different things we can do to make ourselves look, feel, and perform better.
And one of the key things is, to give credit where we got this information from. You'll see it down there if you're watching the podcast. But if you're listening, you can always go on the NASM YouTube channel and see the graphics that we have here. This is, at McKinseyandComp.com. I'm sorry. This was their work. So we're not saying that we put this together. We're just diving into it as they're the experts in gathering this information. And that's what we're bringing you today. So Wendy, just for a point of reference, let's go through the generations and kind of define them. Gen Z, these are people born 1997 through 2002. So these are my kids, our Gen Zers. Their current age is 12 to 27. Millennials, 1981 to 1996. And then Gen X, I fall into that group. Wendy, I'll let you tell people where you don't fall. This is 1965. I'm not. There's no 6 in my birth year. Through 1980, so 44 through 59. So you'll see that there's different habits during these different generations. Obviously, there's some commonality to it, but you can look at appearance, health, fitness, nutrition, sleep, mindfulness. All of these things are falling into that wellness bucket of the 480 billion that we talked about. And you're going to see different areas of focus. But the key thing is these trends are significant for each. But you can kind of see here, I'll just take fitness, where the overall range is versus our Gen Z and millennials. So you're going to see trend lines. And then you can just look at that back into your current market or who your customers are. And then you could even think about what they like and how to speak to those generations differently as well.
Oh, 100%. We've got to be able to talk the talk. But I think too, one of the things that I've noticed, and I have a lot of clients that are now wearing different types of devices that are testing. For example, people are measuring more of their blood, their glucose, and they're actually doing this. We're taking these different types of implements, they're putting it on the back of their triceps, and they're watching their information on their phone based on different levels of when they eat and how their body adapts when they're in a seated position versus working out. And then it's giving them all this information on what they can do to make that number normal for them, because everyone's a little bit different. So what we're seeing basically is, especially when we had the pandemic, that made this at-home testing kit thing. Everybody needed one of those because you needed to get tested if you were going somewhere or going to be out with people. We wanted to make sure everyone was negative. And that kind of was like, oh, wait, if I can make a kit for that, why can't I make a kit for all this other stuff? And so it kind of opened the doors of different companies saying, we can do this as well and make a lot of money, but we can make our different people in the population that want to know this information, we can allow them to do this at home. And so when you're looking at these statistics, I mean, we're looking at 26% of US customers are interested in knowing about vitamins and mineral deficiencies, and they can do this without going to the doctor. 24% for cold and flu symptoms, which I find fascinating, by the way, because I'm like, oh, it's a cold. No, it's allergies. No, it's flu. Like, what do I have? And so now you can test it at home. Or 23% for cholesterol levels, which again is really important as we age because our numbers tend to shift on the negative side if you're not careful.
Right. And what you're going to see is convenience, right? People want to do things in the safety and security and privacy of their home, and think about how much time you're saving. So this is just something, it's not just this testing. Start to think about what your business is going to be, because if they like these conveniences, they're probably going to like other conveniences. So trend 2, a new era for biomonitoring and wearable. Shocking. As I, put my hand up to my ear right now, you see my wearable. In the other day, I forgot my charger and I felt naked without my wearable, right? It wasn't just because of the watch from that standpoint, because I have a phone that will tell me time, but I like the data, right? So you can see that we're moving into wearables, and technology is only going to get better with the advancement of AI. So roughly half of all consumers they, meaning McKinsey, they say we surveyed have purchased a fitness wearable at some point in time. While wearable devices such as watches have been popular for a period of time now, new modalities powered by breakthrough technologies have ushered in a new era for biomonitoring and wearable devices. And if I was going to go way ahead and think about where this goes, and I talked about this when I was doing my research in studying for my doctorate in health sciences, there's no question that AI will do one thing that it just hasn't gotten to yet. Is I call it the law of silly numbers. When there's enough data pulled in from doctors, wearables, things like that, eventually you can look at probably a 13 or 15-year-old and say, hey, by the age of 16, if we've seen this, this, and this, at 65, you're most likely to get that, right? Eventually they will get there with data where it's not just drawing blood every year and things like that, because they're going to put all that data into, smart software that can figure it out. But look at how much data people are collecting now with their wearables, right? So they're going to tell you exactly sleep plus steps plus whatever is going to give you this type of outcome. So I don't see that changing at all. I think that people are going to be smarter. Like, how many conversations, Wendy, we just had somebody talk about this with HRV. 10 years ago, nobody knew what HRV was. Now everybody's tracking HRV. So I really do think that the consumers are getting smarter, which forces us in the industry to be a step ahead of that.
Yeah. And unfortunately, we see our statistics of obesity, they're still on the rise, Marty. And the thing about technology is there are a lot of different devices. It was funny when you held yours up. I'm like, well, I've got this one. I've got this one. I wear all different types of devices. I want to know. And then I'm going to take the data, the one that I like the best. And that's the one I use for the day. Just kidding. That's not how that works. However, if I have to take it off to charge it, then I feel like, oh no, I'm not going to get my sleep data. So I have to hurry up, and I will actually stay awake until it charges enough to get me through the night and then take it off and shower. I mean, I'm kind of weird like that. I want credit where credit is due, especially when I know there's certain areas that I'm lacking. So if we're thinking about this too, with our clients and our athletes, this data can really be very informative for us. We can see, especially when we're doing programming with this data of, well, do we need to push them a little harder? Are they not being pushed enough? How well are they sleeping? How well are they recovering? So the more information, like you said, the more information that we're gathering, I think it's important, but it's also a good thing to talk about if your client does not currently have anything, because there's so many different options for them, whether they want a ring or a band or a watch or whatever for them to choose from now, that can be very beneficial for them as well as you.
All right. So as we move forward here, trend 3, Wendy, why don't you take this one? I kind of laid it up there for you.
Right. Well, we're looking at AI. AI is everywhere. And so nearly 1 in 5 U.S. Consumers and 1 in 3 millennials prefer personalized products and services. Shocker, right? Well, while the preference of personalized wellness products was lower than in years prior, we believe that this is likely due to customers and consumers being more selective about which personalized products and services they use. So, like I just said, which piece of technology did you want? And then where can you gather the most information that's going to lead you to long-term information that's going to be beneficial?
And let's be honest, I use the term fitness professional very frequently, but a lot of people are called personal trainers. And we always want to keep the personal in there. Wendy and I've done podcasts on how you make small group personal, how you make sure that everyone's getting what they need through assessments and all of this stuff. So we never want to lose that personal touch. But why do you think some of these technologies are working? Is because the people, they're inherently selfish. And I don't mean that in a bad way at all. There's certain things when I go out, when I purchase a car, when I go to dinner, when I do entertainment, it needs to speak to me or I'm not likely to do it again. So there's no difference with that in fitness, right? We need to address people where their needs are, giving them what they want, what they need. I know where, Wendy, where I'm going with that one. And it's got to be about them. It's not about us. So we've done tons of information on this. And I think AI is only going to make people maybe a little more spoiled in a sense.
A little more spoiled, yes, and in a lot of different ways, especially in academia. I'm seeing it taking over because it's easy. AI is doing the work for you. So you want to think, You want to use your brain. It's important. And the more we use it and we think about it, especially on the fitness side too, we should not be pushed out for AI. And you need to know how you can combat that. Should somebody ask you, well, if I design a program on the computer using AI, what's the difference between you and them? And you need to have a really good answer for that. But today on the Master Instructor Roundtable, myself, Wendy Batts, and Marty Miller are talking about the global trends of wellness and fitness in 2024. And we've talked a lot about what we're seeing. We're talking obviously about technology, whether it is a wearable, AI. I think it's important now. If we go now we're on number 4 here, and we think about clinical over clean. I love it. Love this, right? So last year, we saw consumers begin to shift away from wellness products with clean or natural ingredients to those with clinically proven ingredients. Today, that shift is even more evident. Roughly half of UK and US consumers or customers reported clinical evidence or effectiveness as a top purchasing factor, while only 20% reported the same for natural or clean ingredients. This trend is most pronounced in categories such as over-the-counter medications and vitamins and supplements. Marty, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, we know here in the US, I can speak on that. I don't want to say anything about outside the US, is that supplements are not regulated, right? There's some, things that you could get in trouble for making claims on, but, people want to see, is this clinically proven? Is the research there? We don't want just someone's opinion. And the wordsmithing people use about natural, or like I've seen water that says gluten-free. Like, sometimes they'll purposely do things to kind of confuse and market and kind of manipulate people into thinking something's better for them than it's not, the way they list the ingredients and all that. And I think customers are catching on to that. So they want something that is proven, not just kind of said to do something.
Well, and I think it's important too. Unfortunately, that's where with social media and the things that we see, there's all of these products that are constantly on there. And if you click on one to read more, all of a sudden, the next time you go onto your social media page, you're getting overloaded with, best hair products or eye products or, how to.
I don't get the hair products one, Wendy.
But it's fascinating. And if you guys have ever heard Neil Spruce talk, he is the owner of .fit, that is a supplement company. They do third party testing. So, yeah. And it's a blind tested, meaning that they are saying and making these claims of this is what's in there. Clinically, this is the dosage to make this particular supplement. And it's 100% of what it says it's on the bottle, because they go through different testing that's used with athletes that have to make sure that everything is natural and done correctly, or they will be tested positive for something that is a substance that you shouldn't be using. So with that being said, there are products out there. They're probably a little more expensive, but what is your health worth, Marty? We ask that all the time. And it's really important for you to look for that information and make sure that it's legit.
Couldn't agree more. So that's why we see that trend. So now moving on to trend 5, the rise of the doctor recommendation. So the proliferation of influencer marketing in the consumer space now has created new sources of wellness information with varying degrees of credibility, of course. So as consumers look to avoid health washing, what they call that is the deceptive marketing that positions a product as healthier than it really is. Healthcare provider recommendations are important once again. Now, we hope that your healthcare practitioner has, studied it and is an expert, but more and more of the doctors that I have spent time with, they understand that they need to be more educated in those spaces, or they'll tell you when they're not educated in those spaces. So that's good news, because they are putting the time and effort and energy in, because a lot of people, as I said before, like, oh, I saw this in the newspaper or a magazine. Now I've seen it on the internet, and you continue to get this feed constantly because of the algorithms. So, don't hesitate to ask your doctor, check in with somebody. Don't go just by the social media influencer.
Yeah. And there's a lot of functional doctors is what I hear a lot of the females in my age group that are going to now, because of different things happening in people's lives. And I find it fascinating, because I would say 10 years ago, I really didn't hear about a functional medicine doctor. I don't know if you had, Marty, but I didn't. And I found it fascinating to find out what they do differently than my primary or my general practitioner. And so there are different doctors out there, some that study Eastern medicine, Western medicine, or maybe a mix of both. And so it's always good to get recommendations from your friends that have had positive influences on the different doctors, but definitely go over a doctor recommendation versus social media for sure.
Agreed.
Well, I'll talk about this one. So number 6 here, women's health, of course, historically. So this is back in the day, women's health was underserved and underfunded. Poor women. We've had it rough. But today, the purchase of women's health products are on the rise across a range of care needs. I would say they're really on the rise because there's so many different products out there on the market. And while the highest percentage of respondents said that they purchase menstrual care and sexual health products, consumers said now that they spend most on menopause and pregnancy-related products in the past year. I think there's a ton of, I mean, that basically speaks for itself. I mean, I can see the change, and it's all over.
Right. And the key thing is, as we go through research, they're starting to spend more time in narrowing the focus, right? Like, I know this one more specifically, Parkinson's versus dementia. They kind of study everything together. But if you look at Parkinson's, 60-some% are men, dementia, 60-some% women. Well, what if the difference is the male versus the female, hormones, et cetera? So we need to continue to hyper focus on certain areas. Obviously, there's certain things that are obvious, but let's continue to hyper focus on women's health, because there's certain things that happen that would not happen to me. And we just need to apply the science so we can get the best outcomes.
All right, in-person fitness here, we're talking about fitness has shifted from a casual interest to a priority, which I'm super excited to see. Around 50% of US gym goers said that fitness is a core part of their identity. This trend is even stronger among younger consumers. 56% of US Gen Z consumers surveyed considered fitness a very high priority, compared with 40% of overall US consumers. Now, Marty, with this, I'm hoping that eventually we're going to start to see these numbers of obesity decrease. However, we still haven't seen that shift yet, but I'm hoping that more and more people, especially with the education, research, and as many people that are talking about fitness, hopefully we're going to start to see that shift.
Yeah, I think that comes from some of the generational stuff, right? Like, if you look at the generation prior to me, a lot of women weren't involved in sports as much. I wouldn't say none, my mom's age compared to my grandmother's age, but they also had more jobs that made them be very active. So they didn't have to search out fitness. So my generation truly was kind of, in that transitioning from sport into more generalized fitness and looking at it as a long-term thing. So hopefully each generation is more involved in that. We know that though the later generations now, or the younger generations, they're having issues, right? Whether it's they're taking phys ed out of the school, whether they're on their gaming systems, whether fill in the blank. But at least fitness is a known conversation, and most communities are served with facilities and or public parks, recreations, things like that. But we're on the front line of it. We have to do a better job of getting people engaged, keeping them engaged, making it exciting, and making it part of their daily life.
Well, 100%. And I think about my grandparents. They owned farms, and they were moving hay and doing a lot, different things with cattle, and always having to go around doing farm type activity all day long. And they would be on the fields all day long. And so when you think about how much physical activity they had in a day versus us now, especially we're talking about AI and technology, more people are in the sedentary seated position doing their jobs. So it's not that they're not working, they're just working in a different capacity physically. And so that's why we're still seeing these numbers. However, it is good to see that, fitness is a priority, but it's still important to remind everyone that going to the gym and working out for 1 hour versus being out in a field for 12 hours a day, there's a big, big difference. And so we need to look at how much are you in a seated position, how much are you actually working and being physical. And I think if we can even those out, or even go on the other side of physical, that would really help.
Yeah, and I'll steal this from Rick Ritchie, one of our, NASM Master Instructors, who I know he stole from somebody, I can't remember who, is you can work out 3 times a week and still be physically inactive. Okay, let your mind wrap around that for a minute, meaning your daily job, your other hours of the day are basically sedentary. So even if you go to the gym 3 hours a week, you can still fall into the sedentary lifestyle. Interesting. So those of you joining us right now on the Master Instructor Roundtable, Marty Miller here with Wendy Batts, and we are talking about the 2024 global wellness trends. So now that we just talked about that, let's jump forward here after in-person fitness and talk about gut health. This is something I know very personally because someone near and dear to me had gut health issues for years and years. And it was talking to Neil, who is an expert, after consulting with their physician. So 2 things we just talked about. And all they had to do was add 1 supplement to their diet and everything changed. And it's a miracle, so it's fascinating. And I have a dear friend who spends time in this space as a surgeon, and what I'm learning about gut health is fascinating. So as we look back here at the slide and pull up some of the data, we're going to see how important it is. So more than 80% of consumers in China, the United Kingdom, and the United States consider gut health to be important, and over 50% anticipate making it a higher priority the next 2 to 3 years. And I've heard, people say it, maybe not directly, but I'm going to say it is, the gut is the second brain. It is in constant communication with your brain. If you do not have good gut health, you do not have good overall health.
I can say I agree with that.
Glutamine is a magical supplement. So talk to your physicians, talk to nutritionists, registered dietitians, but check out your glutamine.
Yes. Sleep, Marty. I knew this slide was going to end with or come up on me reading it. Just as a daily reminder, despite consistently ranking the second highest health and wellness priority for consumers, sleep is also the area where consumers said they have the utmost or people need to sleep. I need to sleep. Marty, you do a really good job going to bed at a certain time, getting up at a certain time. So you definitely get the award. But in our previous report, 37% of U.S. Consumers expressed a desire for additional sleep, pick me, and mindfulness products and services, such as those that address cognitive functioning, stress, and anxiety management. Now, I will say that if you're not really paying attention to how much you sleep, you're really not honed in on the lack of sleep you're probably getting. Because the more and more we started doing these podcasts, I really started to break down, okay, what time do I get up? What time do I go to bed? Do I have the luxury of taking a nap, which is 0? And, how much time do I spend just taking a moment to just sit in silence and meditate or try to bring myself in a downward position? I use myself because I hear more and more people say, I wish I could sleep more. It needs to be a priority. I'm trying to make it a priority. People my age need to sleep around 8 hours a day. Or a night. So just try.
All about brain health. I'm just saying, scares the
That's what's wrong with me, Marty.
Scares the bejesus out of me. I'm trying to age very, very well. So I don't like, I love being up, but man, night time comes, I'm out.
Yes.
So speaking of that, healthy aging. So I think, Wendy, I'm in this age group. You're right around the corner. So demand for products and services that support healthy aging and longevity, we've done podcasts on this as well, is on the rise, which is great. This is going to make it easier for all of us. Propelled by a shift towards preventative medicine, finally, right? We're getting healthcare instead of disease care. The growth of health technology, which we've already talked about. And then you can include in there telemedicine, digital health monitoring, etc. And then there's advances in research on anti-aging products. And guess what the number 1 would be? Ding, 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 sleep, and then a lack of stress.
Well, it was nice knowing you people. Thanks for playing. Just playing. I'm working on it, Marty. I'm working on it.
Are you saying in like 5-10 years, I'm going to have to do this podcast by myself?
Maybe if I don't make some changes, if I don't change my life habits. I'm just kidding. But let's talk about weight management, especially as personal trainers. This is people's main reason for coming in, usually to see you. And so weight management is the top of mind for consumers in the United States, where nearly 1 in 3 adults struggle with obesity, which is really sad. Let me say that again. 1 in 3 people or adults struggle with this. 60% of U.S. consumers in our survey say that they are currently trying to lose weight. While exercise is by far the most reported weight management intervention in our survey, more than 50% of U.S. consumers considered prescription medication, including glycogen-like peptides, so GLP-1 drugs, to be very effective Intervention. Prescription medication is perceived differently elsewhere. Shocker. Less than 30% of UK and China consumers considered weight loss drugs to be very effective. Marty, I don't know about you, but unfortunately, in some of the groups that I run in, there are more and more women that are talking about these different shots that they're taking. And when we're looking at this, it's pretty scary because they are losing weight. They are feeling less tired. They are not tired, less hungry. So therefore they are taking these, GLP-1 drugs. My favorite part about this is the doctors are the ones that are recommending it for a lot of these individuals. And some really don't have a weight issue. Now, before I go down it's not fair for me to talk about it because I am not a person that has studied it in detail. However, I've read a lot of information about what it can do to bone density and long-term health effects that you may not see, because this is something that is almost immediate results. People start to see this very quickly. So those of you guys that are listening, I would, especially if you've got clients that are on this, I would stress to you to go to NASM.org. When you go to NASM.org, click on the tab that says resources, click on where it says learn, and then there's an article, and it's an evidence-based review that was done by Dr. Cheatham. There's Brad Dieter. There's a bunch of other people that contributed to this particular review. And it goes into some pros and cons of this. So especially if you have clients or if you're considering doing this yourself, please go in and read that. It's kind of like an overview of everything that you would need to know. And especially if you're going to be talking to your clients about it, you should know about it and what the effects are, because it's going to be really, really important to work on bone density and balance, especially if someone is utilizing these types of drugs.
Yeah. And I think the biggest thing I've always focused with any of the weight loss trends is the scale is not only the only indicator of health and wellness. That doesn't mean you've got good VO2 max. That doesn't mean you have good bone density. That doesn't mean you move well. That doesn't mean you have good muscular stability, strength, or power. So a lot of people, sadly, if they can get to a number, that's kind of where they leave their fitness. I've seen a lot of unhealthy, skinny people. I've seen, and we've seen research that if you would be healthier, being very active and carrying some extra weight, than being skinny and inactive. So just remember, this is designed to be maybe a part of a severe weight loss routine and regimen. Not supposed to be like the little liposuction type of weight loss. It was never, in theory, thought to be like that. And if you are not absorbing the food, you're also not absorbing nutrients. Okay. So I'm talking at a high level. You still need to go talk to medical professionals. Let the body do what the body's designed to do, and then maybe look for any type of other medical treatment as a last resort, not the cheat code first resort. That's my theory, my opinion, not NASM's. But I think it's pretty sound in the body still craves and needs movement. It needs the heart to be challenged. It needs the muscles to be challenged. You're not going to age healthy if you're only using this as your fitness regimen.
Please read the review.
Yes, please.
So Marty, key takeaways. It's important to know the current trends, the good, the bad, and indifferent, because these trends obviously are a trend for a reason, meaning that more and more people are reading about it, wanting to know more information about it. And it's important for us to stay on the top of it, especially because this is a global trend. It's not something that's only happening in the States. As you can see, a lot of reference to China and the UK. Educate yourself on the trends. Like I said, I just gave you a place that you can go and learn about the GLP-1s. I think it's really, really important that you learn more about the different products. Look at the anti-aging products. Think about vitamins and supplements. We talked about clinical versus clean and natural. What does that even mean? So have an understanding of what you're reading, and then going in and try to dissect that more and more through research, and not through social media or what you're seeing on television and advertisements, because that's what sucks people in. And then you have to think about, the opportunities to these trends. Think about some of the threats to these trends, especially in our profession. And then you need to decide and help your clients that may come to you with some of these questions because they heard about something. You want to be in the know as much as you can. It's okay to say you don't know, but then you want to know where to go to find the information. Mm-hmm. Marty and I are always here to help. There's people in NASM. Obviously, we do have the NASM Facebook page if there are specific questions where we can put experts on to help answer those questions, because I'm definitely not an expert in a lot of this area. But there are people out there that really want to help you down a path that's going to guide you into really good advice and sound advice, which is really important for your clients that may ask you about some of these that are out there.
And I think the last key takeaway I didn't put on there is Wendy's still not getting enough sleep.
Hey, I'm getting better. I'm trying.
Progress.
Yes, I know. I love it when, like, for example, way offline here, but my Oura Ring will say, "Oh, your bedtime's approaching," and then all of a sudden my Garmin's like, "Time for bed." It's 6:30 at night, and I'm like, I haven't even finished cooking dinner yet. So you know what? Y'all have to wait. So anyhow, I'm trying. But if you have questions other than my sleep habits, please feel free to email me at any time at wendy.batts@nasm.org, or you can find me on Instagram at wendy.batts13.
And don't be afraid to reach out to her about her sleep habits at those two locations. And for me, it's dr.martymiller72 on Instagram and marty.miller@nasm.org. So Wendy, thanks so much for diving into this very cool topic. And next time in 2025, we're going to see amazing sleep habits from Wendy Batts. So for all of you that joined us this week, thank you so much. And of course, we look forward to seeing you on next week's Master Instructor Roundtable.